Well, hi, I'm Philip. I'm German book blogger and booktuber. That's why we are doing this video interview today. Welcome at Frankfurt Book Fair.
Thank you very much.
And
good to be here.
Yes, and next to me there's Jessica.
Okay, so Jessica
Hello.
and
Philip. Yes.
It's very nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
Well, you have been in Germany for a few days.
About 5 now, yeah.
Okay, and you have been in Switzerland before, in Austria. And do you have any good experience until today? And and on the other hand side, do you have any special meetings with your friends? Any highlights, for example?
No, I'm only laughing because, you know, I've been here 5 days and you ask if I've had any good experience. I've had many good experiences. So, no, I always like coming to Germany. It's become a very important place for me and my books. And it is also a place where, you know, I have met so many people over the years because I have been coming since about 2000 or so to Germany, and so it's there are now people that I see who I signed books for, you know, 15 years ago, and they show me a picture. Or, you know, I had some women who I signed books for several years ago in Stuttgart, and we were having fun making, you know, teasing and things like that. And so the things that I wrote in their books, they made into T-shirts with my face on it and came here yesterday. So, you know, things like that. It feels very comfortable. I like it here, and I love the people.
Yeah, do you have any favorite place to go in Germany? Any castle or city, for example?
Not so much, because when I come, I am usually only going from, you know, either the Bahnhof or the Flughafen, and then I go to the hotel, and then I go to the event, and then we travel the next day. But I have had enough time in say in München to go to the art museums, the Pinakothek and some of the others, and my wife and I both love art, so that was a wonderful experience. But you know, really, I have different memories of each place. So all my Frankfurt memories, where we are now, are very much connected to going to the book fair. So they're about people that I get to see every time I come, and, you know, restaurants that we have gone to in the past and things like that.
How is the collaboration with book bloggers and booktubers in America? In Germany, it's not that big. How is it in America?
Well, you probably should rather talk to my wife, because she's very active online, and she communicates with a lot of the people who are doing these things. But I don't think it's so much behind in Germany. I think it's very common now in both places, and the main difference in publishing now than when I first came into it is that the publishers themselves are relying on the writers to do more marketing. And so for us, the book bloggers are a big help. You know, it's really useful for us to have people out there spreading the word. And also, a good difference is in the old days, it was, you know, also the book sales people and all that, who are all very good people, but not all of them were reading the books, or, you know, they were just selling the books. Whereas the book bloggers tend to be readers.
Tend to be very passionate about
exactly, yeah, people who read. So when they talk to you, they want to talk to you about the thing you've written and ask questions.
It's almost like buy this book and this book and this book, because they're all great. But do you listen to reviews of book bloggers or on Amazon?
I will sometimes. The problem for me, I don't know for other writers, the problem for me is that I can get 20 really good reviews. You know, everybody says this is wonderful. It's, you know, and then one person, no matter how stupid their review is, that says, I don't know why they even let this guy write books. He's terrible. You know, and even if it's written by a 10-year-old, you know, I will worry about that all day, and I will forget all the good ones, you know. So I learned after a while that I kind of just stay away from reviews as much as possible. I do sometimes watch the interviews or things, but mostly I let my wife look at the reviews, and sometimes she comes in and she's really angry, and I'm saying, see, that's why I don't do it. You know, because she wants to go to that person's house and beat on him with a hammer, you know. So and the other thing too is that for me, the writing part is the most important. I do the best I can. You know, it's not. I can't say, oh, the reviewer didn't like it, I will have to write harder next time. You know, I will have to work more next time. No, I do the most I can, the best I can. And so after that point, it's up to, you know, not everybody is going to like what I do. And so I can't, I try not to worry about it too much, and I just go back to work.
In some ways this would be very boring on the other hand, because if everyone likes what you are doing, there's no chance to improve yourself in some way.
And I do, I mean, if a lot of people say the same thing, you know, I hear about that, or my wife will tell me, or somebody will say, you should read this review. It's a little negative, but it's also very thoughtful, very smart review, and then I will go and look at it. So I'm just mostly avoiding the ones that will make me cry. You know.
And from where do you get your inspiration for sometimes a new book?
Before I write a new book, I always have more ideas than I have time to write. So, you know, I know already that in my life I will not write all the books I think of. So what happens is, as I am maybe finishing my last book of a series or something, I will begin to think about the other ideas that I have been holding on to. And also I will talk to my wife, because again, I mentioned her, Deborah Beale. She is also the business brain of the family. She was a publisher, that's how we met. So between that, I will talk to her a little bit. Also, I will just think, which of these ideas feels like something I need to write now, to be the next book. And over the time I am finishing the other book, I just play around with them, and it is a bit like evolution, or like the African veld, you know, it's the big ideas will eat the smaller ideas, you know, and eventually there will only be one idea left, and that is the book I have to write, because it is now the one I am thinking about all the time.
Okay, but if you finally find an idea, do you plot your story, or do you have some space to develop it? Because sometimes a character does stupid things.
Yes. Sometimes they certainly do. It has to be both. It has to be both, because I write my books even when they come in multiple volumes, you know. Even when I do that, I want people to be reading things at the beginning that will pay off at the ending. So like one single story. So as a result, I have to know many things when I'm starting that will be true at the end. I must plan several years ahead. So I know the big moments in the books, I tend to know most of them beforehand. But as you said, I have to be ready for characters to change. There are such complicated stories that sometimes I thought, oh, by this time, this character will be all the way over here, but no, this character went off over here, so I have to think of how else I can do that part. You send these guys, send these guys, send these guys, and then you realize these guys didn't go, so you go back to them and push them.
Or you let them die.
Or you let them die. Yeah, well, yes, that not as much from me as, say, for George.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
But yes, you know, so...
Oh, I like the character... Oh, no.
Oh, there you go. Yeah. So that there is that thing that I like to keep some flexibility in the story, so that... And also, it takes a long time to write one of these multi-volume stories. So in 5 or 6 years, many new things will come to me, you know, or I will hear somebody talking and I'm saying something and I'll go, ooh, that's a nice character moment.
You just mentioned George. Is this a competition between you fantasy authors, or is it like friendship, or you just don't talk to each other? I don't know.
I would certainly hope it's a friendship. I have a huge liking for George's work, and I like George as a person very much. And he has kindly said that my books were an inspiration to him in writing The Game of Thrones. And certainly I felt, in a sense, that I wanted to now come back and sort of continue the dialogue. But I think probably in my career right now, George is, he is out there and very big, obviously. So I don't think he sits up nights worrying about me. He is not listening for my footsteps coming up behind him. But that's okay. He's a very fine writer and a very good man. And I was very happy that for someone who had such success, that it was someone that I respected. You know, I respect his work, and so, you know, all the great things that have happened to him, I say, good job, George.
What do you think? Is it possible that your book's gonna be a movie or series?
I think, yeah, I would. I think so, and I would like to see them at probably in what we call long-form television. You know,
Yeah.
Yes.
because yeah, in the past, fantasy movies have always suffered because it's such a short time, and one of the things that people like about fantasy is that it is very complex and the worlds are very complete, you know, and we like to sink into those worlds and look
What
around.
I love in this genre.
Yeah, and that's what I fell in love with too when I was young and I first read The Lord of the Rings. You know, I loved the depth and the history and all that. So I think, you know, we have that love, and the readers have that love, and we want that. And a film makes it so small that you don't have, you know, it just feels like, you know, a Hollywood studio, you know, not a real world. So, but the thing about Game of Thrones and some of the other really good shows is that they give you time. So yeah, that's what I would like to see, and yeah, we are talking to some people.
Because world building is so insane, and to put it in one movie is so difficult.
No, it is true, and yeah, and also in the old days they didn't have CGI, so they couldn't add people. You know, so if you ever seen the movie, did you ever see the movie Willow?
No.
Oh, it was a big fantasy movie that Steven Spielberg did. But because it was in the 1980s, early 1990s, the world felt like there was no one in it. You know, they would have like an army going out to war, and there were like 70 or 80 people in the army, you know. They had a castle where the evil queen lived, and you know, I would say to myself, you know, I could take my 3 kids and, you know, a couple of hammers, and we could conquer that castle. You know, there's just hardly any people there. So that's one of the other things that has changed. You look at Game of Thrones, and even though you may know that or Lord of the Rings, you may know that a lot of those characters are added in computer, but when you're watching the movie, you just see the big sweep of all the armies, and, you know, so that is also better now.
Okay, come back to your books now. There have been a large break between the last book and now your new books. It's called Das Herz der verlorenen Dinge in German. This one, it's the heart of what was lost, and now it's the last king of Außerdem, the Hexenholzkrone in German. Why do you come back to this world?
The thing for me is, I had always said to people who asked, they, you know, people, if people like something, not surprisingly, they want to see more. So when people had asked me, will you ever go back to Oostenrijk? Will you ever go back to other land? And I had always said, if I have a story to tell. I can't just say, I'll write another Oostenrijk book, you know? I said, if a story ever comes to me, because my wife was asking me the same question, you know, why don't you ever think of doing a sequel? One day I was trying to think of all the reasons why I could not, to tell her, stop bothering me. And as I thought about this, I thought, well, one reason it would be difficult is because it's been 30 years, you know, since I wrote those books. I am a very different person now. I have been divorced, remarried, moved to Europe for a while, came back to California, had children. Our children are now adult. Many things have changed. Then I began to think, what if that was true for the characters as well? What if 30 years had passed for the characters? The characters who were teenagers, Simon and Miriam, and just married, and just becoming the king and queen at the end of the last books, would now be middle-aged, probably children, grandchildren. Some of the old characters would be very old or dead, you know, and there would be new generations. So from that idea, little other ideas began to shoot off like sparks, you know. And by the end of my thinking time, I came back to my wife and said, you know, curse you, you have now made me think of a new story to tell in Oostenrijk. Now I have to write it, knowing it would be many years of work, you know. But it's been really fun. I've really enjoyed it.
And do you have any fantasy stuff that is very must be in each of your books, like dragons or elves or...
Well, what you do notice when you've been writing for a while is that every writer has certain themes. Yeah? And I always have themes. A lot of things about families are very much in my book, and family relations and lost parents and that sort of thing. I'm very interested in old civilizations, that are gone now but still influence the way we live. I love forgotten cities. I like underground things, where, like Joseph Campbell says, the hero's journey, you have to go down before you can go up. So those kinds of things come up again and again in my work. And clearly I'm still trying to work through whatever it is that fascinates me.
Do you want to say something to your German fans out there? Maybe in German?
My German is so out of practice. I think not in German. It would just be, everybody would laugh. But of course, the thing that I want to say is that Germany is as important to me, and the German-speaking, market, Austria, Switzerland. Germany is as important to me as the United States. It is a very important part of my writing. And I have had such a welcome here and have been lucky enough to become well known here that every time I come, I am grateful. I am so grateful. And people are so nice to me here that all I really want to say is thank you.
And it's a pleasure for us to meet you and that you come here. Yes.
Thanks a lot for the time, of course.
Very welcome. Thank you. The very last part, because you guys were deciding what to do, so my head is going like